Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the 11th film in the Godzilla franchise, Godzilla vs. Hedorah from 1971, which you can also find under the title Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster. And Hedorah is an amorphous species of alien from the Horsehead Nebula. It feeds on toxic chemicals and other pollutants, so after being transported to Earth aboard a comet, it finds itself enjoying an all-you-can-eat buffet. We humans are pumping a lot of toxins into the environment after all. Gorging itself like this causes Hedorah to grow into a massive, toxic, acid-secreting sea monster. And Hedorah's existence becomes public knowledge when it attacks and sinks an oil tanker. It wants to gobble up all that sweet, sweet crude inside. This fresh feast gives the monster the fuel it needs to transform into an amphibious form, allowing it to move on to land and feed on sources of pollution there. The alien makes its way to a power station where it begins consuming the smoke from its chimneys, at which point it is confronted by Godzilla. Now, in a change of pace from the usual structure of these films, Big G seemingly wins this first engagement, tearing pieces of Hedorah and driving the other monster back into the ocean. But as the gloopy, goopy alien retreats beneath the waves, we see all those dismembered pieces are following it into the water and growing as they do so. After it reassembles its engorged subsidiary pieces back into itself, Hedorah grows in power and strength, eventually attaining a perfect form that seems completely unstoppable. Can anything stand in its way? Well, yeah, of course something can. A certain big radioactive lizard. It's Godzilla's world after all. The rest of us are just bit players in this franchise, but it's going to be a titanic battle. Now, this may be a film about giant monsters, but the scale of the production was actually very small. Writer director Yoshimitsu Banno was given a significantly lower budget than had been provided to previous Godzilla productions, and he was also only given a 5 week video window in which to complete filming. Now, it was not the most harmonious of shoots, with Banno regularly clashing with special effects lead Terayoshi Nakano over the tone of the action. This conflict proved an accurate predictor of the critical and popular response to the movie as well. You see, Godzilla vs. Hedorah has a very controversial position in the Godzilla franchise, with some folks loving it and some, including Big G's creator Tomoyuki Tanaka, hating it. Tanaka was in hospital when the film was made, which meant he did not see it until it was complete. His reaction was emphatic. He reportedly flat out described the film as ruining Godzilla and had Yoshimitsu Banno sacked from a planned sequel. Now, I personally am firmly in the pro Hedorah camp. I like this movie, but I'm not surprised at the strong reactions in both directions. This is a boldly different and iconoclastic Godzilla movie, and it will absolutely not be to all tastes. So let's discuss some of its most significant features in more detail. And let's talk first about the villain of the piece. Hedorah is a slimy, goopy monster, able to shift its form with considerable ease. Not surprising, given that it's actually a gestalt being comprised of billions of tadpole like creatures. It feeds off smog and pollution. We are poisoning the world, is an extremely unsubtle message of the film, and it exhales sulfuric acid. Now, I think Hedorah is a great villain for Godzilla because the big lizard's massive physical strength proves almost completely worthless against it. Sure, Godzilla can punch holes through Hedorah's skin with ease, but it's about as effective as punching water. Even his atomic breath seems of little use. And while he drives off Hedorah in their first tussle, the film makes it clear that the new monster on the block is retreating only temporarily and will be back bigger and badder sometime soon. Now, I suspect that Hedorah's ability to shrug off Godzilla's attacks is at least a small part of the controversy of the film. Godzilla ultimately needs human assistance to defeat Hedorah, and even though the big lizard is the one who does the vast majority of the work and lands the killing blow, some people probably eject him not actually having all of the tools to win the battle himself and needing help to do so. While often humans will play a role in Big G smackdowns, it's not usually essential, and it's certainly rare that Godzilla's own weapons are not enough to get the job done by themselves. So yeah, the nature of the monster is one thing that probably provokes divided opinions, but as a point of conflict, I think it pales next to the sheer craziness of this film. Now, some of this craziness is structural. For instance, Godzilla vs. Hedorah features several gonzo 70s party scenes and a soundtrack that both feel like they would not have been out of place in an Austin Powers movie. It also has several quite disturbing animated sequences dotted through the narrative. Other parts of the wackiness of the movie are expressed in the content and tone. To give an example, in one of those party scenes I mentioned, that features a character taking drugs and then hallucinating that the other partygoers have the heads of tropical fish. Then there are those animated sequences. As I said, they're quite surreal and strange, frequently quite disturbing, while at the same time being comedic. And then there's the film's approach to its monster action, which veers wildly between very serious and very kitsch. In one scene, we get both. Hedorah's acidic goop is graphically shown melting dozens of extras into muddy skeletons. But after the monster has passed by, a single slime covered kitten is found left behind, bedraggled but completely unharmed. Not even alien smug monsters can resist the power of the keton, it seems. Then there's the fact that the film has lots of strong environmental messaging. It's got a very serious message that it wants to tell, but it also has Godzilla using his powers in extremely goofy new ways. Now, I expect that a lot of this tonal whiplash derives from the struggle between Bano and Nakano over the direction the film would take, and possibly post production meddling from Tomoyuki Tanaka. It's hard to imagine that anyone planned in advance to make a movie this widely schismatic in its tone and style, but I feel glad that it happened. Now, it's a pretty famous feature of classic Japanese Godzilla films that the kaiju battles are principally depicted by having a couple of people in rubber suits flail at each other while stomping through a cardboard model landscape. Now, that's not a production approach that readily lends itself to depicting graphic, real injuries. It's more common for an injured or wounded kaiju to demonstrate it's been hurt by having the actor thrash around a bit and adding appropriate sound effects in post production. Despite its low budget and constrained shooting schedule, however, Godzilla vs. Hedorah bucks this trend. I've already talked about the surprisingly graphic human death scenes as people are consumed by acidic goop, but the kaiju on kaiju violence is similarly more graphic than usual. Both Big G and his alien opponents suffer grievous wounds from the struggle. Blood and other bodily fluids spurt, eyeballs get ripped out, flesh is gouged down to the bone. It's another example of the Jekyll and Hyde nature of the film. This comparatively high impact kaiju violence is interspersed with some of the most ridiculous expressions of Godzilla's powers. I'm not going to spoil the specifics because I think they deserve to be experienced unspoiled, but I can certainly see why they remain among the most contentious elements of the movie within Godzilla fandom. So if you've got any interest in kaiju films at all, and you've seen at least the classics of the genre, such as the original Godzilla, maybe a couple of others, then I recommend you give Godzilla vs. Hedorah a try. Whether you love it or hate it, I doubt you'll walk away without some kind of strong opinion, and you're certainly going to remember it. Next time, the survival drama Flight of the Phoenix, specifically the 2004 version of the movie, though I doubt I'll get through the video without at least some comparison and contrast with the 1965 version that starred James Stewart and Richard Attenborough. But that is for next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you've seen Godzilla vs. Hedorah, let me know what you thought of it.